Longtime fans of the show should be familiar with the lender formerly known as Sue Pullen, and I'm pleased to announce that she's back, fresh off a rebrand and ready to help as Sue Mackey. Sue is a certified mortgage advisor at Fairway Independent Mortgage, an equal housing lender who focuses on finding the right product for you and your needs. She has over 20 years of experience helping thousands of homeowners. Whether it's purchasing, refinancing, or even a reverse mortgage, Sue will help. Sue's licensed in 36 states now, so reach out and let Sue Mackey it happen for you. The best way to reach her is just give her a call at 520-977-7904 or in an email, spullen@fairwaymc.com. Fairway Independent Mortgage has an MLS number of 2289. Sue Mackey has an MLS number of 206048. That email again, spullen@fairwaymc.com, and that phone number is 520-977-7904. Shoot Sue an email and let her know she needs to update that address. Disclaimer time. This is where I tell everyone to lighten up. It's just a podcast. Trading is like that roller coaster at the amusement park. Thrilling, unpredictable, and potentially stomach-churning. What works for one person might leave another clutching their hat in the wind. Our hosts and guests, they're awesome, knowledgeable, full of insights, but we're not financial advisors. So don't rush to make any investment decisions based solely on our banter. Always consult with a professional or do your own research. Plus, let's face it, we like to have fun, laugh, enjoy the trading ride together. It's all in the name of good podcasting fun. So remember, take it easy, don't bet the farm, and keep your seatbelts on at all times. Thank you for listening.
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the China Shop, home of the Bandit Traders podcast. I am Kyle, and tonight I've got Fleri back from the Gelber trading competition. We've got our director of guest procurement, Bear Goes Long, and special guest Eric Mason's joining us. So I guess that means we're probably going to be asking absurd econ questions or competing to see who can provoke the biggest geopolitical rant out of him tonight. Before we do that, let's get some show news out of the way. Last week, I mentioned that Eric and I are going to be starting a presidential podcast, and we'll be recording the first episode of that tomorrow. Eric, do you want to kind of give people maybe a little teaser of some of the types of knowledge you're going to drop on them?
Yeah, well, I think it'll be...
What's the most absurd George Washington fact you have?
Oh, that his teeth were probably more likely made from horse than wood. I think that's a pretty absurd fact.
Yeah, there's more to that story, too.
Yeah, first only president to ever lead troops into combat while president, and it wasn't during the Revolutionary War. No, we're gonna have fun with that. Yeah, the Buck Starts Here podcast. I think Kyle and I will be on a little adventure. Hopefully, we get some of these guys to show up as guests throughout the series.
Well, that's kind of what I'm hoping. Fleri, actually, that's kind of what I'm glad you're here with him, because I think your boys from Rare Barrel, when we finally get to Prohibition era, would be perfect for getting on over there.
Yeah.
I think Bear would be very fun to bring on for like the Franklin Pierces and the James Polks, the kind of rugged Western American expansion.
That could be interesting, and I actually have some family stories around Abraham Lincoln as well.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh,
Bear, you seem like a Manifest Destiny guy.
No, it's more one of those. I got a lot of stories from my great grandparents doing genealogy from my original ancestors landed shortly after 1600, so like the second or third set of boats. So in that family history, I mean, when you go back 15 generations, we're all kind of related.
Yeah.
So just some fun stories that I uncovered out of that.
Family tree gets a little knotted. You go back too far.
Yeah. Yeah, like the guy was talking to the conference I was at today. He's like, yeah, there's parts of the South where the family trees don't really branch; they more weave.
Damn it, Bear. Do you want to tell everybody what? Oh my God, mushmouth. Do you want to tell everyone what's coming out on Thursday? Our episode that we did with Sean.
Yeah, that was awesome. We did a roundtable about trading psychology with Cleo, Sean, Kyle, and myself, and it was fun because we each got to come in with a question, a psychological question, and go, "Hey, this is a scenario that I'm dealing with," and get Sean's advice. So, I think there's a whole smorgasbord of opportunities there for everybody to learn some bits about their trading psychology.
I've already taken the first steps yesterday and seen some payoff today, so yeah. I'm excited for that to come out. Hey, Fleri, what about you, man? What's going on your side of the screen?
Just finished up the Gelber contest, which was like 6 weeks, I think, maybe like partially into the 6 week long thing. Had a follow-up interview with some of the team there, so potentially some more things going. Been kind of working on and off with them for the last 6 months.
Did the interview already happen?
It did.
Yeah, how'd that go?
So Yeah. I mean, obviously Chicago and New York is a big thing. So we'll see what happens there. And, if anything, I sort of gatekept the the fact that it was even happening because, I mean, why let all my really good trader friends find out about it? But,
right.
It was a great experience, a little peek, behind the curtain of what's going on in the professional space, at least at their firm. The mentality and the mindset of some of these guys and how they move around different markets and how they view risk and things like that. So yeah, I mean, it was just it was a really cool experience. It was long, it was challenging, a new platform, very limited time to get used to it. The way I'm in and out of the market like relatively quickly was challenging in TT. So we executed using Trading Technologies platform, which is an amazing platform, but it's really like intentional order execution. Whereas if you're in NQ, I call it price risk, like you're picking a spot, it becomes very difficult. But I mean, it was just a really cool experience and a little draining to try to do those things at the same time as trading your account and all of the things that are trying to go on in life at the same time. But man, it was well worth it. And I hope they do a round 2 and hope to see some of you guys in it maybe. And yeah, we'll see what happens.
What was how'd you sign up for that? Was it just a drawing or something?
There was an application process, and I was, sort of privy to the fact that the contest was going to be going on early, if you will, through some of my communications with that Gelber team already. But I mean, it was just it was a cool experience. Came very close to cashing. Matter of fact, like I was, so it was a blind P&L. It turns out I was well in the lead at one point to the winning. So I was well above what the winning P&L was at one juncture when I was leading. And with 2 days left, I was actually much closer to the lead than I thought. And again, maybe we'll dive into it in a further episode. But maybe a game theory punk, puke a little bit. But, happy with the way that I traded in it, happy with the way that, I played the game inside of, the fact that it was an interview process, a 6-week interview at the same time. But yeah, been fun doing that and, looking at multiple restaurants potentially opening. And it's just been, it's been awesome, kind of a crazy summer kind of winding down and yeah.
Fucking great, dude. Ed, you're, I mean, speaking of the Gelber competition, sounds like maybe we might be getting some episodes lined up with some of the competitors, maybe some of the organizers.
Yeah, I reached out to just like the general team and there was a pretty big response as far as like some interest coming in, whether we do it like roundtable style or whatever. I don't know if we'll get any of the Gelber team. I'm not sure how that works with like their ability to actually come on and speak to it. But, and they did have, somebody in the contest that hosts like FX podcasts that they went on at some juncture. Awesome. So I don't know if they have some, whatever commitment to that, but nonetheless, we'll for sure get some of the competitors to kind of share their thoughts and, their experience as far as like the blind P&L and just, how it went. But
yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. Eric, how about you, man? Anything going on?
No, I mean, just... Right, I mentioned the other podcasts have the annual economic outlook I'm doing for Gray in early December. If anybody in the Boston area wants to hear me ramble for 75 minutes and then yell at me in person, great combination. Besides that, heading back to my alma mater next weekend, going to they're opening a new business ethics school, and so they're doing like a big like opening dinner for the Kendrick Center. So that should be pretty fun.
I always thought business ethics was a joke from Adam Sandler. What was that movie?
Is that Happy Billy Gilmore Madison. Or something? Or no, Billy Madison.
I think it's Billy Madison. Yeah.
It's a cool.
Right next to My Wife, the Cheating Whore.
It's a cool institute they're putting together. So they got a big donation.
Yeah,
should be that should be a fun time. I love going back to West Virginia because like Massachusetts versus West Virginia is the biggest culture shock in the entire world. And I'm going
just complete opposites.
Yeah, 2 days after a presidential election.
Oh wow! Oh, you're going at the end of next week. Oh
yeah,
man.
So I will guaranteedly be in one place happy, one place sad, regardless of what happens.
No matter what happens.
Yeah, no matter what happens. It's a matter of departure and arrival more than it is about position.
But you know what I did this weekend or yesterday? I think it was. I finally dusted off my old copy of Fallout 4 because I was like, "Oh yeah, this was set in Boston." So I went and looked up like the Quincy Old Town Church and some other places that were located there. Wandered around.
Fallout 76 is based in northern West Virginia, so back-to-back Fallouts. I was able to walk to where I lived at one point.
Right.
Yep.
They made this for me.
All right. Well, we should probably talk about something either trading or economics related. So I don't know. There's some stuff going on. We got FOMC coming up, so we can talk about that. Max 7 earnings. I think 6 of the 7 have already reported. There's some interesting stuff in there that maybe we can talk about.
There's
I've also got some
election.
jokes.
Very
election,
Tiny election happening.
That might have like completely
Mild
opposite,
volatility in the markets, I'm sure.
maybe two
I've also
people
got-
with opposite economic plans, possibly.
I've
I've also got a couple economics jokes that you can tell me if they're good or not. If we want
so
to play that
open
game.
to these. Is there enough demand for them? I have a mug that says that. Yeah. Kyle just drops me off. That's never hear from him again.
I know, right?
Get out.
mute Eric. All right, well, let's go to FOMC. I like to know because I think indications are 25 bip price cuts, kind of what's being priced in right now. That's the expectations.
The job number today wasn't super hot. It's like 12,000 new jobs.
Yeah, 12. Yeah.
I am somebody who believes that's probably impacted by 2 hurricanes absolutely effing up an area of the country. But with that said, it was 5 states affected. I don't know if that accounts for 100,000 jobs, but there's some down chain supply management problems that can cause job effects, but I don't think it would have been that pronounced. So it's a weak number.
That number is not the seasonal jobs, right? That's all. Seasonal is a different number.
Yeah, these are non-farm payroll.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I still think you're going to see 20 basis point cut. I think that's already locked and priced in. I'm seeing that in the bonds that we're selling. I don't know if are you guys seeing that? Like, I'm not like the biggest Black-Scholes guy, but I'm assuming you're seeing some of that consistency and in short period trading, right?
I usually just use FedWatch to kind of get a feel for what that is. That one kind of shows you what the instruments are pricing. Here, I'll find the website if you want to take a look at it.
I wasn't trading this morning, but right after the numbers dropped, because that was 8:30 Eastern, the numbers dropped. Didn't seem like NQ really had much of a reaction.
Yeah. The market was up.
No, it's pretty chop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had to drop my daughter off at basketball at 6:30 in the morning. So 10-year-olds at 6:30 in the morning are so much fun.
Let's see.
Why are kids going to basketball? 10-year-olds going to basketball at 6:30 in the morning?
Because that's the only time that was available in the gym for them to do their practice.
Oh, that sounds horrible, Bear.
Yeah, it was.
Where did you go to high school? I had to go to 0 hour for most of my high school.
I went to 0 hour for all of high school, but I'm just a nerd.
Heck is 0 hour.
The class before the class.
School starts. Yeah, we got to get there at like 6. It was stupid.
It was like 7 for me because regular classes started at 8-ish.
Yeah, ours started at like 7:30, I think.
Wow.
But there were some days where it started a little bit later. Arizona sucked as far as school goes. Everyone in Arizona wants to go super early for everything and be done by like 2 o'clock before it becomes scorching hot.
Why do we live there? Why are people there?
Well, at least Arizona was smart enough to not do daylight stupid time.
Yeah, that's about the only thing they did. Right.
How do you guys feel that like one little small appendage in the northeast of the United States dictates everything? We're the reason there's daylight savings time because we were like, it's kind of a little darker here in New England, so I guess you guys have to deal with this everywhere else in the country.
It was the stupidest freaking idea ever. Seriously.
Every year at the State House in Massachusetts, they want to go permanently and be AST, Atlantic Standard Time, so drop daylight savings time. And if we could ever...
But they get to be the ones that are 9 o'clock at normal 9 o'clock?
Yeah, no, it's weird.
They want to be the ones...
Right?
Yeah.
Like, I was on the West Coast once in my life, and I was like, what? TV schedule's all messed up. Go back to the normal schedule.
Dude, I hated being on the West Coast, or the East Coast when all the games would come out, because it'd be like 11 o'clock and like some of those games start. What the fuck are you guys doing out there? You're gonna be at work at 6 in the morning.
The Red Sox will play the Angels at like 11:05, and I'm like, move up your time. I love the fact that college football teams get penalized, like NCAA teams get penalized when they play on the West Coast because the guys who do the polling don't stay up to watch them, so you end up with like nasty teams upsetting March Madness because nobody watched them.
What? That's the same thing with like MVP voting in most of the big sports. You'll see that a lot of the West Coast teams get kind of snubbed because nobody stays up late enough to watch.
So real quick, are you guys down for Chinatown where you're just a like massive country that's one time zone?
I would be up
I
for
would
that.
be up for that as well.
I don't care if 9 o'clock is 3 a.m. or 9 o'clock.
Well,
Time, it doesn't matter. I'll get
You
up if it says
dirty
3. I'll get up if it
communist.
says 7. I don't give a shit.
No, the problem is that, where do you get your local expectations for, what, when do people go to lunch? When does the office open up? When do banks hours? I just hate that, everybody's like, oh, well, let's just go to daylight saving times permanently. I'm like, so you're going to have noon at 1 p.m.? I mean, words have meaning. It's like, you know what? Just have noon at noon.
Right.
And if you want to do shit early, just start redefining. Hey, we're going to open the office at 7. Dude, when I worked at the Pentagon, my workday started at 6, which meant I got to go home at like 2:30. It was awesome. I loved it.
Right. I want to see Bear breaking out a sundial every time he gets in an argument with somebody about when noon is.
The sad thing is I've actually had to map that shit out on my farm because I'm putting up solar panels. And I was like, I need to set of panels up so they're perfectly south facing. So I had to go do all this astrological shit. Oh, it was a pain in the ass.
You mean
a little mini Stonehenge in the back of his farm?
Pretty much.
Kyle,
yeah.
Damn it, you beat me to that joke. I was trying to get that.
Oh, God.
All right. Well, we kind of devolved away from FOMC pretty quickly there.
Honestly, at this point, sundials are probably just as accurate.
Wait, is it we're trading podcast right now?
I thought we were. I mean,
people are turning
trading
solar panels by
FOMC.
some bear. What? That's the only reason I listen to this.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear when people come up to you at your next conference. Say, well, let's talk about some Max 7 earnings then while we got you on here, because I know you like to dive into a lot of the earnings reports. Look like 3 of the 6 that are reported out didn't get received too favorably. I think some people were pointing to maybe some growth numbers kind of slowing down. What were you seeing in those?
Okay, I was Jake.
Yeah. The person who looks at them regularly.
Max 7 pretty regularly.
I just trade when the chart goes up and down and somebody had earnings.
Right.
It's not. I'm not the economic.
All he cares about is when it's happening.
I think as an economist, the win is more important.
Right.
At times, I wonder if I should be looking at it more. So this is I'm more of an avid listener to whatever you have to say here, because it's like in the contest we kind of spoke about this a little bit. Like these guys, like they are tuned in to, okay, if earnings look like this, then this effect, like we're going to be trading this pocket of futures or stocks or whatever, because like they were trading the short end of the treasury curve last week, and I'm like, dude, I just trade UB. What do you mean the short end is better trade right now? So again, like that was a pretty eye-opening thing of like the way that you can, like, I don't necessarily trade economic information, but like to know where to trade was kind of like the big eye-opening thing from watching, these professionals kind of approach economic information. Whereas I just go, there's news, so and you go uppy downy really fast,
I better sit on my hands or
get in there. Yeah.
Play some breakout orders if I really feel like gambling.
You sound like a perfect Austrian. I don't exactly. You don't need to have all the economic data. You just be able to make the decision. No, I mean, so yeah, like trading on the tails is sometimes what we call it, like on the econ side, is like trading on the tails. Like you're looking for the narrowest point on the distribution curve that's still actionable. A lot of guys are just absolutely phenomenal at that, and it's kind of cool because you can program computers to detect that, but a lot of times they're only as active as the data they have coming into them. So there's this whole concept of like, what's the smallest unit of trading time? I once heard somebody refer to it as quantum finance, like the smallest unit of tradable data, like the planks, like a Planck unit. I thought it was kind of cool.
What was the unit he came up with?
Oh no, they're still trying to figure it out. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm actually working with like a research team that we were like trying to figure out like what's the shortest amount of trading information humanly possible.
It's gonna end up being like a week.
Yeah, no, it's like, yeah, it's just funny because there's so many different definitions. Like you can absorb data, but if you can't trade it, it doesn't mean anything. It's like printing money. If it doesn't enter the economy, doesn't cause inflation. Having information when you can't trade doesn't make you any money.
Mm-hmm.
No, what I think, to be honest with you guys, what I think is happening with all these earnings and the reaction to them is everybody's just waiting for the end of the election cycle. That's my big thing. I think these earning reports, I don't think there's anything anybody should be hyper cautious of or hyper panicked about.
The only thing that really caught my eye was seeing that Bezos unloaded about $3 billion worth of Amazon.
He's a top caller too, man. That guy is good.
Yeah. He has been pretty solid at that in the past, hasn't he?
He has got really, really good timing historically, at least for like significant pullbacks. And you never know if he's buying back. That's funny. You always know when he's selling. You never really know when he's buying back.
Right.
Interesting. Stupid question. What's $3 billion relative to his wealth?
I think it was like, what, 128? So maybe like 2.5%?
4%? Yeah.
Well, how much
Do
did
you
he
make
give to his...
decisions on 2.5% of something?
How much did he give to his ex-wife?
I know she donated $4 billion to like relief.
She's a good trader.
Yeah.
No, she's been giving away like over $1 billion a year is what I thought I read.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like after you have $1 billion, it's probably all the same life, right?
Yeah.
It probably gets boring after a certain point.
You would think, but I don't know. Maybe it's like a high score. You're just trying to run it up as high as you can make it.
Yeah, I would give like $1 billion to like the most, like the charity that I know could least understand how to spend $1 billion. Imagine going to your local Boy Scout troop and you're like, here's $1 billion nonprofit.
Like the cash for cars people or something.
Ferraris for everyone. Wait a minute. What? You got your Ferrari badge.
Look at Musk going, Twitter, 45 billion? Yeah, fuck it. Why not?
Right. Yeah, I'm sick of that guy following my plane.
Could you imagine like being the den dad or den mom and you're like, I gotta like bring these kids in the woods and teach them how to use a Swiss Army knife, and some dude's like, here's a check for $1 billion. It's like, it's gonna be so much paperwork. I don't want to do any of this. You don't get anything out of it, so it's just you just managing $1 billion. It's I manage half a billion. It's time consuming.
Then the price of everything that troop buys end up going up 8,000%. Becomes It becomes like a Boeing soap dispenser at 8,000% markup. Yeah,
what is it like the coffee? What do you call it? The coffee pot in a B-2 stealth bomber is like $12,000. That Bayer probably knows this way better than me. I feel like I've read that somewhere.
I read about it, but it was like, yeah.
A timer for the dryers on the sub I was on was $875 or $900, I think it was. A dryer at the time was like $150.
Are those innately safe? Like, does everything on a sub have to be like designed that it can never have a static charge? Yeah.
I don't think it's designed like that because the things definitely did catch on fire quite often when people didn't clean the lint traps.
Holy shit.
Hold on, this is a trading podcast, but what?
Yeah,
were you on nuclear submarines, like the ones that like in the world?
Yeah.
We can't afford better washing machine. The number of times my washing machine is caught on fire, zero times in my life.
Yeah, but yours also isn't being shared by 170 people or however many.
Buy a better washing machine. That's not my fault.
Anything you run,
government work,
24/7. Yeah, but yeah, the way it works on the at least in the Navy side, I think that's the way it's explained to me, is everything is written like as far as like the manuals are, so that a person has to be able to operate the machinery with a 6th grade education level. So the reading comprehension of that. So every manual has to be rewritten for that reading comprehension, and it has to be tested at like the most extreme rate of use as it possibly can be, so you can determine the maintenance cycle. So like the toaster example they gave us, like a toaster starts out being like, $100, but once they go through all the testing, like how many times, if we toast bread 24 hours a day, how often do you have to empty the bread trap or the crumb trap? And so then they'll have a PM schedule built for that. And once all that testing goes into it, then they jack the price up and say, oh, we just put all this work into it. You're going to have to start all over with somebody else unless you want to take this markup.
It's like anything having to do with aircraft.
Yeah, once you get it approved, it's cheaper to just pay the gouged prices that it is to try to get another vendor qualified for it.
Well, yeah, like speed tape costs $100 a foot because it has to be serialized by the foot. Every foot of speed tape has an individual serial number. It's all gone through FAA testing process, certification, blah 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 blah. It's insane.
I don't know who made speed tape, but I refuse to believe that's not the most American invention. Possibly all time. It's like,
is that the aluminized tape?
Yeah.
That they
it
just
costs
put
like 25 30 cents a foot to make it. If you buy it at Home Depot, it's like $1 a foot.
Yeah.
But, once you go through FAA certification, it's $100 a foot.
Jesus Christ.
Sick. It's just like, how do we make this plane like have less drag. It's like let's tape her up. You definitely know that was some guy in the 70s who was like, listen man, duct tape and WD-40. I sprayed the plane with WD-40, didn't go any faster, so I guess it's duct tape. Process of elimination.
I think might as well just embrace the fact this is going to be an after hours.
I'm sorry.
It's all right.
No, but like a little bit to what I was getting back to on the, the market, the earnings reports not shaking the markets. Like, I think it's everybody's kind of waiting to see what happens in the elections, because I'm doing this funny thing right now. For my presentation in December, I'm writing 2 reports. I'm writing one if Harris wins, one if Trump wins. The effects from a tariff standpoint and from like international trade and long-term tax load is so similar. It's just how they go about doing it. It's kind of funny because government can't create wealth, right? Every action the government does is a form of taxation. Every penny the government gets does not come from any productive activity. It comes from the reduction of productive activity to hopefully enforce, positive economic institutions like contract enforcement, free passage of the seas, you name it. So it's funny as I'm writing this, I think it would be very funny. I think America would feel better if we all sat down and we're like tried to examine the world in a rational standpoint based on the outcome, because we're so polarized right now. And one of the things I'm finding is that you either have large tax breaks that will definitely, I think will definitely help the middle class. I'm being honest. I'm talking like an economist. But overprotective tariffs impute cost onto more efficient industries. That's just what tariffs have been aged. Then there's therapeutic tariffs, like what we're doing to China right now, which are different because you're trying to counteract CCP policy. You're not just being a protectionist. Those are 2 different things. But, look at the tariffs we passed on China. Trump put those in place, Biden kept them in place, and like both candidates want to keep them in place. But what's funny as we walk through it, I think it's a very interesting process, because what matters more? The effect of tax policy, the effect of tariff policy, or the way in which that effect happens? And right now, the market seems unsure. It's like how do we both know what the outcome is going to be? Both plans can't support themselves, right? Both plans are going to have federal deficits. And there's this new thought. I was talking to a couple economists on this, and I kind of found it really interesting. So you guys have heard of the crowding out effect, right?
I don't know that I've heard that one.
Yeah, it's the if you have too much government spending, that it reduces the supply of dollars that people want to borrow, and that causes interest rates for everybody to go through the roof. I was talking to this gentleman. It's on different podcasts. Whatever. Guy's great, but
bleep that.
What's up,
You stepping out on Kyle, Eric? Jeez.
Yeah, right. But when we were talking about this, and he asked me one of the best questions I've ever been asked as an economist. That didn't come from Kyle. And I gotta rope you back in. And he said, but do they ever raise taxes? And I was like, saying no. I was like, what do you mean? He goes, everybody's nervous about the crowding out effect in these perpetual massive deficits. But do they ever raise taxes? The question is always, we need to be careful with these, with deficit spending, because they're going to raise taxes in the future. Well, when's the future? Like, he's like,
right.
$30 trillion in debt. When are the taxes coming? He goes, there's no appetite by any elected official right now at the federal level to raise taxes. Like George H.W. Bush, once he lost that election for doing the right thing, nobody's ever done it again. It's been
right.
30 plus years. It's going to be 30 years, right? Like, it was 1996. 1992, sorry. So it's been over 30 years. I thought that was an amazing question. I was like, oh, yeah. We can, as long as your GDP is growing faster than your interest rate, you're kind of getting a little, I hate to say this, but you're getting a little bit of a free lunch there. And, but both these plans are going to have big federal deficits. And maybe that's what people want.
I thought that was a big part of the Harris package, though, was raising taxes. Just she tells everybody, it's like, oh, no, I'm not going to raise your taxes. I'm going to raise everybody else's taxes.
Yeah. That's one of the funny parts of economics. You can't choose who pays your taxes.
What do you mean?
What defines who pays a tax is what's called the tax incident rate, which is basically how try to word this I'm gonna have like one of my students who listens to this like yell at me because they probably wrote this down as a answer and I marked them wrong. But it's basically the steepness of the demand curve. Yeah, that's a cool thing. You can't like politics is an unwilling participant in economics. You need to have, you know, you don't get to decide who pays taxes. You don't get to decide, like the federal policies don't get to decide who pays the taxes. The demand for the good decides who pays the tax. So even like income tax, like, oh, like this individual is paying it, but that individual is going to change their consumption habits, and that's going to have this knock-on effect, we call it. Yeah, it's like tariffs. Like China's going to pay for this. Like, no, they're not. Some things they might.
Right.
The producer may take more of the cost. But my family, we sold gas for 75 years. We never paid it. We never absorbed a penny of the gas tax. I'll tell you that right now.
No. Wasn't it? I thought it was Norway that recently had that. They did a huge tax raise on the rich, and discovered like 30% of the rich said, "Yeah, screw you guys. We're moving somewhere else."
Yeah, no, that happens. But it depends, right? It depends on your access stuff. First off, Bear, I don't know if you've heard the last time I talked about Norway. I think Norway is the biggest fraud of any country on earth. They're like, oh, look at us, our 5.5 million people. We have such this great existence. And it's like, is that a Norwegian hat? Why do you have a Norway hat?
Because that's where my family's from.
Okay, so then you know this. All they do is just pump fossil fuels out of the ground and destroy ecosystems with fishing. They're like, look, we're this clean country. It's like, no,
we're the cleanest country on earth.
Yeah, you are CO2 magnets. Like, I don't know, I get this argument a lot. Like, why can't we adopt the Norway model? I'm sorry, the freaking country that is 1 million less people than Massachusetts. Is that the country we're talking about? The country that if you subtract Boston and Worcester and Springfield, the 3 biggest cities in Massachusetts, is still smaller than Massachusetts. Are we talking about that? That's the country we're talking about, right? And that just pumps out a bunch of natural resources. That like those companies that paid to do that, they were all companies that like got licenses in the 60s and 70s that had 50-year expirations on them. And then the state got to take them over. Like, that's what we want. We want, like, people to build our stuff, and then we automatically take it over in 50 years.
Longtime fans of the show should be familiar with the lender formerly known as Sue Pullen, and I'm pleased to announce that she's back, fresh off a rebrand and ready to help as Sue Mackey. Sue is a certified mortgage advisor at Fairway Independent Mortgage, an equal housing lender who focuses on finding the right product for you and your needs. She has over 20 years of experience helping thousands of homeowners. Whether it's purchasing, refinancing, or even a reverse mortgage, Sue will help. Sue's licensed in 36 states now, so reach out and let Sue Mackey it happen for you. The best way to reach her is to just give her a call at 520-977-7904 or in an email, spullen@fairwaymc.com. Fairway Independent Mortgage has an MLS number of 2289. Sue Mackey has an MLS number of 206048. That email again, spullen@fairwaymc.com, and that phone number is 520-977-7904. Shoot Sue an email and let her know she needs to update that address.
Why do you know so much about Norway?
Because I like argue. What I do is when somebody argues with me, because like, Americans' economy, oh, it's bad. I want to go learn about every other economy so I can rip it down.
Yeah.
I'm
research the shit out of it.
Yeah, okay. It's like the first econ book I ever read was Das Kapital, because I wanted to understand why communism is so stupid. And I read that book and I was like, I now understand the argument of communism. And it made college very fun for me, where I was like, oh, you are mechanically incorrect. Let me tell you exactly the page where you're wrong. Where like, you don't get that with the Wealth of Nations, where it's like, oh, no, this makes sense. People want to be wealthier and they're willing to trade. Oh, and if one group gets really good at something, another group gets really good at something, they can trade. And the group that can make stuff more efficiently, make product A more efficiently, trades for product B that the other group made more efficiently, and everybody's wealthier. That makes sense to me.
Everybody wins.
Everybody wins.
It's not a zero-sum game.
Yeah, exactly. Capitalism is the only system that doesn't require poverty. It's like, it's the only system that doesn't. It's like, it's a byproduct of, right now, poverty is a byproduct of a non-perfectly distributed goods. And then, I also, like, there's also the participation clause, like, there are certain people who, like, for better or worse, can't participate in the economy for issues that probably aren't their fault too. Like, we need to take care of those people. You still need ethics within the confines of any system. I always love that. People are like, well, look at the falls of capitalism. I'm like, have you seen socialism? Like, when you see what's going on? Like, why don't you go ask a Uyghur in China what's going on right now? I don't.
Or you get the people that just go absolutely ape shit about poverty in the U.S. and oh my God, we live in such a police state. I'm like, holy shit, travel internationally. You want to see a police state? Go visit Egypt. Holy shit.
What's the wealthiest country in Europe?
Wealthiest country in Europe?
Yeah.
Depends how you define wealth. It's like, 'cause it
by
would be
GDP, let's say, maybe?
Like, Luxembourg is probably the highest GDP. If you want to say like dollars in reserve per citizen, probably going to be Norway or Switzerland.
And how do they compare
does
to
Monaco not count?
the States?
A lot of times we don't do the same data collection for micronations and city states, but Bear, you're probably right. Monaco would be number one. There's a whole question about like the definition of citizenship that can become real awkward,
right? Because isn't Monaco really just the world's greatest tax haven?
Yeah, like, honestly, yeah, it's a Cayman Islands, but it's been around longer, so it's like aged Cayman Islands. So
Principality, yeah.
It's like a new Switzerland.
Switzerland. So my whole thing is I like to learn about other countries, like Austria, for example. I have a buddy from Austria. He's a really good shit. He's actually a really good guy. He's gonna listen to this and be like, I hate you. He was yelling at me one time about America having so many homeless people, and I was like, dude, you're a really good economist. You understand the concept of convergence. Small numbers grow faster than big numbers. Because he was saying all the homeless people. I'm like, Austria has a population of New York City. But I was like, you do realize like Austria is mechanically has higher poverty than the United States. He's like, no, we don't. And I was like, you have 50% higher poverty. The number of people living below the poverty line in Austria is 15.4% when I checked this data over the summer. He was like, well, I don't see that. I'm like, because you live in a parallel society. Go ask Switzerland right now why there's like, go look at Sweden right now in the parallel society and all the horrible stuff that's going on over there. But yeah, it's very funny because everybody like wants to crap on the U.S., but if you apply the same standard people hold the U.S. to, you realize like every other country is like way more horribly flawed. Just doesn't work.
What was the other stat you gave us? Like if Spain was a state in the U.S., it would rank below Mississippi as far as like wealth goes.
40% poorer than Mississippi. I said that at a conference one time, and I saw some dude who was going to ask me during a Q&A, Google that shit because like I can see down. I don't know if people realize in Q&A, like, I can see what you're doing. Like, I don't know why they act as if there's like a mirror in front of me. And then he just put down his hand. I was like, oh, like I wanted you to do this.
No,
I wanted to do this. That would have been so much fun. No, one of the hardest parts I have teaching college kids, like teaching freshmen, is they don't understand how powerful the U.S. is economically. They have no point of reference. It's awesome. Every year, every semester, I get to re-experience it. Where like I had some kid who was like really like I'm not joking. He came to office hours and he was legit nervous. He was so nervous that like the war in Ukraine and Russia, like this whole war was going to like rip down the global economy. He was so nervous and all this stuff. And this poor kid, something bad must have happened with like the Great Recession or something that like made him hyper nervous. So I said to him, I go, you realize how, I asked the kid, I was like, do you realize how small the Russian economy is, right? He goes, it's one of the largest economies in the world. I'm like, it is, but these aren't linear. Like, it's not like number one, number two, all 10% apart.
Right.
Yeah, so I said to the kid, I was like, Texas, let's take the state of Texas, has a bigger GDP than Russia, Ukraine, combined together. And you could add on like Arkansas and a few other states, and you would still not get to just the GDP of Texas. Like, losing Texas is a big deal. But if Texas suddenly stopped producing, like what happened when it lost its power grid, didn't drag down the world economy. That's almost the cool thing about the United States is basically have 50 economies. 20. This is a crazy stat. If every state was its individual country, 26 of the 50 largest economies would be states. Yeah,
crazy.
Our batting lineup. Everybody's like, "Oh, California, Texas, and Florida." Right? No. Our batting order is dope. Like we're deep, man. Like our ninth hitter is still pretty big.
Yeah, there's sneaky states like Alabama that's got like huge steel production capabilities, and
yeah, and like Arkansas just like keeps stumbling upon more lithium. Like apparently that whole state's just lithium. Must be
they got steel mills too.
So what happened to the huge lithium reserve in Nevada?
Yeah, there's a big one there, and there's a huge silicate one too. But didn't Elon Musk buy like a crap ton of the of silicate? I feel like because solid state batteries use silicate.
Yeah, I'd have to go look. He did some massive investment in lithium mining. Yeah. I mean, I would have thought Arkansas was just Walmart.
I kind of assume that too.
It pretty
Like
much
80%
is.
of the economy of Arkansas is Walmart.
Honestly, Mayor, this seems like an underestimate. Have you been to Arkansas?
Yes.
Yes, I have.
Like, first off, the biggest flub in state naming of all time. They could have been Arkansas. Yeah, right? Like,
Right. There's already a Kansas too. I mean, really?
yeah,
Like
you could have been Batman, Kansas. Like, that's horrible, horrible move. What a weird state. Arkansas is a weird state. It's a weird state.
And wasn't Arkansas like named first?
Yeah,
I don't know.
it actually comes to like
Wait, what?
the native tribes of that area, how they pronounce that word Kansas. The two, they're obviously different tribes in different states. That's why they changed it. I have many opinions about that whole area of the country. I low-key think it's the battery of the entire U.S. because it keeps things so cheap. We should pour so much money into what do you call it, working on the Mississippi Canal system. Like, I think we should just like
Oh God, yeah. If you can, the amount of shipping traffic that thing gets.
$0. The locks are $0. The Army Corps of Engineers, which is like top 3 best government agencies, Army Corps of Engineers, a huge fan of the Army Corps of Engineers. We got to work with them in the city.
Yeah.
They are like honestly the best people, dude. The engineers are like, this is what we're doing. This is gonna, like, what they build lasts like 1,000 years. Like, it's amazing.
Yeah. I got to do some work with them in Afghanistan. They're freaking amazing. I love them.
It's so much cooler thing to say than me, Bear. Yeah, but
No, because you.
I was just like so one up.
I
Like,
disagree.
geez, like, I should just leave it out.
Dude, I was doing little projects. You were doing like levees. Come on. They were just building buildings for me.
Yeah, when I was being a man. Oh, you wearing a suit when the Army Corps of Engineers came and built your little seawall?
Just shake them, shake their hands with your soft, uncalloused.
Or he's just sitting over there going, what the hell did I sign up
You
for?
hear a bolt drop in the background.
This is what economic trading is, huh?
Yeah, that's why you shouldn't take any of this data. This is how economists talk all the time.
This is why I just trade uppy downy.
Right.
Price goes up, I buy. Price goes down, I sell.
Well, speaking of it, do you have any legit economics questions then before we just completely devolve?
I do have one question. You were talking about tariffs, Eric, and I'm totally ignorant on how quickly can those tariffs change? Is that literally like a presidential decision, or does it need to go through Congress?
Yeah, so, I mean, it's interesting. So there are tax authorities that exist on pre-approved congressional action.
Okay.
So, like, a lot of times congressional tax action will say up to this number, and then the executive function come in. Look what we all know what the executive function does. They can come
Right.
there and enforce to the level.
Yeah. So if Congress says, hey, you can tax steel up to 20%, then it becomes an executive decision of whether we're going to tax them between 0 and 20. Where in there?
Yeah, I mean, there have been more rare, but there have like been like situations where where Congress has basically said you have to tax X at X amount. But I don't know if that really has existed in modern politics. I know there are still taxes like left over in that. Technically, like income tax is actually that exact example, Bear. But in terms of tariffs, are usually a little more fluid.
Yeah, and didn't income taxes, weren't those relatively new, like World War I, World War II era?
Late 1900s or early 1900s. Sorry,
That's the second occurrence of them, right?
like 19 teens.
Yeah, there's a short income tax on like the ultra wealthy, I believe, during the Civil War, but it would never stop.
Yeah.
But yeah, Bear's right. Income tax is like 100 years old.
Yeah.
But
You can get rid of that. Hey, I have a joke for you.
Okay, go.
It's a joke about trickle down economics, but I don't think most people are going to get it. Is that a good joke?
That's a pretty good joke.
I don't know.
Right.
Is it? Okay.
I mean, I like it.
Okay, this is actually a real thing, but this is fucking hilarious to me. But I asked ChatGPT for a list of the most absurd economics quotes of all time.
Let's go.
Number 7 it gave me was literally just efficient market hypothesis.
Yeah, no, I'm with. As somebody who teaches that, yeah.
Like that entire field is just a complete joke.
Well, it's the concept of like, can you have efficiency, like in markets, and like we want to believe that, but like, have you seen human beings acting? Like,
has anybody seen a bubble?
yeah, right.
I mean, doesn't a bubble completely contradict the
Yeah,
I mean,
whole
we had an
theory?
efficient market in tulips, didn't we?
yeah,
Right.
or in Landon, Mississippi, right? Like, no, I mean you can be, but what there's always a caveat people like leave out, which is people behave rationally given the information they know, and the people like being ignorant. Like it's rational ignorance. Like why
Mhm.
learn stuff? Like
People like being manipulated.
yeah, people like hearing what they want to hear. Like people like being reinforced their stereotypes. Like that's one of the like
I like that.
I always I send the same email, pretty much the same email to my students every year, and I always say like economics. You're going to feel uncomfortable in this class. Economics makes you feel uncomfortable. If you found a way to not feel uncomfortable as you explore economics, let me know. I'd really, really appreciate to add that to my tool set.
Mhm.
Yeah, people weird.
I was told this question will make any economist very uncomfortable. Can you explain how the real world works?
Yeah.
I'm cutting all these. These are terrible.
Yeah.
This whole segment was awful.
I didn't like that one. I had some guy yell at me one time. I won't go too much detail, but scream at me one time about immigration. And I'm sitting there.
And yell at the people working
Well,
there?
he was talking to me. He knew, like most people, like
Okay.
like never have talked to an economist. Like it's not that. So like I wasn't the CFO yet. I was still just an economist. So a lot of people are like, oh, that's kind of an interesting thing. And I had this guy come in. He was a good dude actually. Like he would come in a lot. I think he had questions. And he once asked me, he was like going on about immigration. He said to me, he goes, "There's no evidence that immigration's good." And I was like, "What? There's an insane amount of evidence."
Right.
I was like, and he's like, "No, there's not."
What was the thing you pointed to about like the Cuban migration to Florida?
The Mariana Lift, like
Yeah.
where they just showed like, oh, look at all these wages that went up after the 174,000 Cuban refugees came over. But I said to him, I'm like, well, no, immigration's like the cornerstone of America's economic success. Like that's how our system works. We're the only G7 nation that has long term population growth is because of this. And he was like, so I just asked him, I'm like, your last name's Polish. Like, I don't know what you want from me.
But isn't the qualifier there controlled immigration
Honestly,
versus uncontrolled immigration?
this is controversial, but like not really. Like all immigration tends to drive up wages and demand. It's more about remittance control. So of like people working in a country and sending all the money they earn back to the country they came from. That can be a pretty big issue. We just like most people come to the US and are like, oh damn, this place is sick. Like this place is awesome. Like my kids go to like a school that would be the top school in the country I'm from.
Yeah.
I can like safely walk down the street. I get paid in a stable currency that doesn't lose value.
Yeah.
I don't,
There's food on the grocery
police
stores.
come here. People put out fires. I'm not scared of getting invaded by my neighbor because like the dictator next door got reelected and now the entire western portion of my country is going to get invaded because they found oil, which is like actually going on right now in Guyana. And they're like, this place is dope. I'm going to stay here and spend all my money and try and like start my life. I mean, there's obviously a greater political discussion that I'm not qualified versus the illegal versus legal immigration to discuss, but there's that uncomfortable truth of dual sector economics.
Yeah, I mean, like you talked about earlier, poverty in the U.S. is upper middle class in South America.
Oh, like in Europe.
Yeah.
Like Europe's poor. Like I'm not joking. There's like a couple countries that are like well off. Then you look at Europe and you're like, oh, you look at countries in Europe and it's like, oh, median income is $26,000. Like what?
Right.
The poverty line's 24,000, I believe, in the U.S. right now. It depends on what you are if you look at CDBG standards. But yeah, so like I'm talking to this guy and I bring up like dual sector economics. He's like, well, what is that? And I was like, oh, it's Dr. Arthur Lewis came up with it. It's a Nobel Prize winning model. That basically is like, oh, if you have a bunch of people working in the agrarian sector and a bunch of people working and then there's a manufacturing sector forms, like the amount of people who move across there is so a lot into it. But basically that's expressive of increased economic development. So like think of it, if you replace agrarian to manufacturing, then manufacturing to advanced manufacturing to service industries and so on and so forth, you can see how as your economy intensifies, having more people available to kind of create that waterfall effect, as long as you keep capital investment constant, which is what we see in the United States, if anything, it's increasing, you get great economic growth, but that's prehented on having, and I'm a labor economist, I'm a little biased, but that's prehented on having the labor available to continuously push this essentially connected dual sector economies. And he was like, oh, what makes that model right? I was like, I want a Nobel Prize, man. I mean, you can just disagree. I eventually told him, I'm like, you can just not like it. That's fine. It doesn't change, like, that it won a Nobel Prize. Like, you can argue with that. Don't argue with me. I'm not smart enough to win a Nobel Prize, let alone, like, dispute that. Like, you can just be, I told him, I was like, you're an American. You can just be angry. That's perfectly fine. Like, I'm not going to hold you back.
So would you consider dual sector like some of the side effects of remote work as people shifted to remote work and discovered, hey, I don't have to live in crazy psychotically expensive city. I could go move out to rural BFE where the average, where the average wage is about $25,000, I think is the county that I'm in. But I can still get paid freaking, California wages.
Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely been a massive distortion in property values in Montana because of that.
Yeah, is that what's going on there?
That's big part of it, yeah.
West Virginia started this Ascent program where they actually gave you money if you moved to the state
Yeah.
and kept your job for remote work.
South Dakota did something similar for the oil fields, yeah.
Bill, can I pick your brain on this for a sec?
Sure.
Because I'm so curious about this, and especially coming from somebody like you. I feel like I could actually get. I feel like there's some good data here. I didn't mean to make that sound wicked and human.
Be my type subject.
Like, can I poke you?
Yeah. What do you feel? How do you feel about that? Like, is it good that there's people coming here with more income and that's going to drive up wages in the long run in your area? Like, what's your thoughts on that?
But I think it's good as long as you own your house already.
Good point. Good point.
I think the question is, does it actually distort wages in the area? You've got goofy people like me that, and I'm not the only one in the county that's doing this, but you've got a fair amount of people in the county that have a disproportionate income level compared to their neighbors. I think it depends more how they live, and a lot of that is cultural. Culture in Montana is very much of not being flashy, and actually
Right.
a lot of disdain for people that are flashy. So that's
pretty similar in the Midwest too.
But I think the other side of it too is a lot of those people are outsized contributors to volunteer and donation type projects. But the other side of that flashy side is they're people that write literally like 6-figure checks to local causes with very strong disclaimers of, if anybody ever finds out about this, you'll never see another dime from me. But as far as economic distortion, I don't know. We come in and we buy some of the land and some of those other pieces, so driving up demand for housing. That's a huge problem in this county. Is there's very little housing available. Probably some of it is the remote work, to the point that they're struggling. Like the sheriff's department, one of their qualifications is you have to live in the county. And county employees, they come out and say, hey, you have to live in the county, and they'll lose like more than 50% of their job applicants because they'll pass the interview with flying colors, they'll accept the job, and they try to find a place to live, and they're like, sorry, I can't find a place to live that I can afford on the salary you're willing to pay me.
Is that unique to Montana or other places like that?
No, I don't think that's unique to Montana. I think that's happening in a lot of places.
Fleri, you run a small business in Minnesota, right? Are you seeing similar issues like that?
I mean, not necessarily similar issues, but I mean, it's a common problem, I would say. I mean, not personally, but yeah.
Fleri, what are you drinking?
Knob Creek 9.
Oh,
bourbon.
Man. I was gonna get a Buffalo Trace.
Yeah. I mean, that's a special treat, but.
Yeah. Fleri, you're up in Minnesota?
I am. Yep.
Honestly, Minnesota, one of the most interesting economies in the world. Incredibly high HDI, very, very, very productive capital infusion, but is in the middle of a continent, which is like, I'm pretty sure the only place in the world that's like that. What do you think? Like, how's your business environment there? I know Minnesota's did a lot with like Syrian refugees and brought in a lot of like, labor. Like a lot. I mean, I mean, we had Syrians move to Massachusetts. I mean, any refugee that comes over here is usually like, I want to work, I want to, jump on the American dream as quickly as possible. What has that been like up there? How is like are you seeing that? Are you seeing that? Is that real? Or is that just something I'm reading in data?
I mean, honestly, like in my experience, I wouldn't know. The workforce that I have a direct contact to, I mean, the skilled labor market is what I would call a dying breed here. So you see a lot of like the lower income jobs. The rate of pay for like an entry level position is what I would call just like ridiculously large. Like it's insane the amount of money that people are getting paid for a job I used to get paid, you know, nothing for. And the talent pool in that same class is significantly lower than it was, say, 10, 15 years ago. That's probably, and again, I don't know what that means to you as far as like, that data point, but it seems like that is one of the biggest hurdles that, as a business owner, as like a manager of whatever hourly associates, like that's one of the toughest things that I've seen is just like the talent pool is smaller, but the pay for the same position is significantly higher than it was. I would say even more, again, I'm just guessing, but like it's significantly more than even like in inflation realm when I was in that position 15 years ago.
Are you saying, are you having to invest a lot to get them trained up to like a way, like to get,
Oh
are
my
you saying
gosh.
either more time or more money to get them up to a profitable training?
I mean, like short of just the dollar investment, the time investment, and then the nature it seems of really any job place right now is like as soon as you train someone up, they go, oh well, now look, I can go jump jobs, and basically they take your training, your efforts, and I mean, honestly, rightfully so, go invest in themselves somewhere else that they can make more money because
Such a capitalistic view.
I know.
Because everyone else has the same problem, right? So like this tier has that problem. You train someone up to this tier and they go, well, hey, I'm just going to get some quarterly review bump to go from here to here. Whereas if I go to a new company, they're starving for people on the tier above me. So they can go get a premium. So I see that a lot. And, as sort of like a mentor, manager, leader in sort of bringing people up through the ranks, it's a bit discouraging to see that sort of whatever environment that's created in this current situation, whether you want to call it an economic situation or not.
This is fascinating. So, like, this is like a real thing we see in economics, where it's like when a supply reduction, supply growth is less than demand growth, and you end up with these like really bizarre phenomena. Exactly in Fleri, one of my I actually wrote a paper really early on in my career that was like trying to basically something about like payroll tax income, trying to suss this out. Like you're not just paying the wage, right? It's not just wages increased. You also have to train this person more, and that's where it just kind of steal a little bit of Bear's point on like that. Well, dual sector. How do the underlying quality of worker has declined? You're paying more. It's shrinkflation of talent. Like you're paying more for less.
Well, it's just I think it's skills in general. People just don't learn the types of trade skills in school anymore. Nobody's going to the trade schools to go pursue those careers because they're not seen as appealing, even though they can be, frankly, some of the most profitable jobs you can get without a college degree. I mean, you make
Or with a college degree,
easily six figures as a welder.
and you get paid.
The barrier of entry is also lower too. So like you used to have to like hard knocks your way into something like that if you weren't going to go to a trade school or know somebody. And now they're like, hey, listen, man, Greenhorn, we'll take you in. I'll show you everything you need to know in order to just get this position filled. And then as soon as you teach them everything, they're off to the next place. And that just wasn't, that wasn't the trade environment, at least in my opinion, as early as like 5 years ago. But you started to see it, 10 years ago, where it was like, why go to school? Why to go to a trade school when, that's going to set me back $30,000, $50,000? when I can just go, this guy's starving for a, entry level employee, and he's gonna teach me everything he knows with his 30 years of experience. Like I'll probably learn more from him than I would paying my out of pocket 30, 50 grand for the school. So it's just it really has created a bizarre environment for like that entry level trade work experience.
How much are you competing with McDonald's? I mean, I don't know what it is in your area. I know my area, they start at $17 an hour. I'm like, dude.
Well, yeah. I mean, and you have to basically beat them in order to get somebody into the door. But it's
and I'm really struggling with that on the government side, because I'm getting ready to hire like EMTs and paramedics, and they're going, well, we talked to everybody in the area and they pay EMTs $20 an hour. And I'm like, dude, $20 an hour when McDonald's is paying 17. I mean, EMT, yeah, it's a class, you can get it in 6-8 weeks, but I think you kind of want to have a little more integrity and personal responsibility than $20 an hour probably buys you anymore. And then the same thing on the paramedics. And paramedics is a 2-year medical school degree.
Yeah.
Right. And they're going, well, the next city over, they pay their paramedics $25 an hour. And I'm like, holy crap. I mean, that's literally somebody you're trusting, not just, literally putting people's lives in their hands. You're also giving them, pharmaceutical grade narcotics that they have to be trusted with. And you only want to pay these people $25 an hour? I don't know if our priorities are aligned here.
Guess I may have already said this before, but guess if you are a first-year firefighter, right, fresh out of the academy, no EMT, no paramedic, nothing, no hazmat. Guess how much you make at the city of Quincy?
The city of Quincy?
Yeah.
$50K.
28?
88,000.
88. What?
Nice.
And we are one of the only cities in the honestly, like in all of New England, from what I've heard, that is able to maintain. We have a full complement for our fire department. We have every piece of machinery is properly staffed. We can handle overtime. We can handle people out sick. And it was, the city's in a good financial position. It was like, that's a basic government. We also have a full police department too, and those guys make good chunk of changes. But it's you're right. You're competing, right? You're competing against what these guys can make. And be honest, a lot of these guys have. These firefighters are smart guys, man. I mean, they got degrees. Some of them have masters. There's some firefighters with MBAs.
Yeah.
I love it.
You got all that free time. You got all that free time to study with. So, hey, why not?
But I do think it is probably time to wrap this thing up and get everyone off to bed here. So thank you, everyone who stuck around to the end for listening. Thank you, Fleri. Thank you, Bear. Thank you, Eric. Remember, show our panelists some love. Click on those links in the show notes. Visit bantertrading.com. Trade with us every day. bantertraderspodcast.com to check out the back catalog, and the informaleconomist.com to read slightly more professional rants from Eric. Be back soon with another exciting episode, hopefully more restrained than a New Yorker watching Mookie Betts catch a fly ball. But until that day, like, share, subscribe, all the things, and have a green week.
Later, guys.
This podcast is intended for informational and educational purposes only. It does not constitute financial or investment advice and should not be construed as such. The hosts, guests, and contributors of this podcast are not licensed financial advisors, brokers, or professionals. Any trading or investment decisions made based on the content of this podcast are solely at the listener's discretion and risk. Trading and investing in financial markets carry inherent risks, and past performance is not indicative of future results. Listeners should conduct their own research and seek advice from qualified financial professionals before making any financial decisions. The views, opinions, and information shared in this podcast are those of the individual contributors and do not necessarily reflect the views or policies of the podcast creators or associated organizations.
Produced by China Shop Productions.